Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and watching week 11's lecture. I should be back by Thursday. So this week we're discussing school-aged years and beyond developing later language. So what major language developmental milestones occur during school-age years and beyond? This is where we're shifting the sources of language input. So it's no longer just auditory information from parents or this pre-learning phase. So around 8 to 10 years, children gain more language input from text. So they're reading more and more. Language learning is more individualized. Reading has a role in developing phonological, semantic, and pragmatic aspects of language. So they're learning a lot more just from reading. And it allows children to review and think more about the written words that are in front of them. So just think elementary school and beyond, everything is more book focused. I thought this was pretty funny. It's called reading it. It's how people install new software into their brains. Oh, my computer's doing that fun thing again. All right. Examples of grapheme to phoneme correspondence. So what does that mean? It's a fancy way to say letters to sounds. So a digraph are two graphemes that make one phoneme. So S and H, each is a grapheme, right? S is a letter, H is a letter. But the phoneme says shh, just like chick and photograph, right? There's the PH sound. So students need to start learning these, as well as silent graphemes, like in the word debt. We don't say the B. And then diphthongs are vowels. So two vowels to form a single syllable, like in time. This is a great worksheet that explains how complicated English writing is. Remember I say that English is mean? Here's a perfect example. So like the B in bat, rabbit, and building all have slightly different spellings, but they all have the same sound. Same with K. K can be a C, right? Like in cat. Or it can be a C and a K, duck. Chameleon. So the CH isn't making a ch in this word. It's making a k sound. Same with in bouquet, right? The Q and the U. Or in plaque, the Q-U-E. So students just have to memorize these and learn the patterns. And there's obviously quite a few of them, as you can see by this image. All right, so 5 stages after the pre-reading stage. I'm going to escape so this doesn't happen anymore. That way you can still see it. Let me open this. Open this. All right. So this is the pre-reading stage. We talked about this last week, where it's just learning about what words are, right? So the birth of beginning to the formal education, we're learning vocabulary skills, narrative skills. It's all oral, right? Or they're just learning about print awareness. They're looking at books. They're learning that there are pictures and words on a page. They're getting ready to read. Okay, so there are 5 stages that come after pre-reading, and this is reading stages, right? So the initial reading or decoding stage is kindergarten through 1st grade, and students decode words by associating letters with corresponding sounds in spoken words. This requires direct instruction by a teacher or a parent, right? So they need to know that there is an association between letters and sounds. Children may read simple stories with repeating patterns. Maybe there's rhyming words in it. Think Dr. Seuss. And reading level is below language, meaning that you can understand at this level 6,000 words, but you can only read about 600. Poor decoding skills creates a bottleneck to reading, which means if you can't decode, you're going to have a very difficult time reading. So, the first phase is errors are semantically and syntactically probable, meaning that they're more vocabulary errors or grammar errors. Second phase, errors have a graphic resemblance, so maybe they're making a mistake with things that look similar. They're just taking a guess because a certain word looks like another word. Third phase, errors have graphic resemblance and is also semantically acceptable. So maybe it's a related word. I love this example with able, right? Able. We would only know that by decoding that the silent E makes the A say its name, that the B and the L together. Table instead of taboo, right? So decoding is very important. So here are some strategies that we may use for students to help them learn how to decode words. So get your lips ready for the first sound. Look at the pictures for clues. Look at a chunk of the word that you might know or that you've seen before. Flip the vowel sounds long and short. Reread the sentence, try again. Stretch out the word, listen to each sound, hop over a hard word, then come back. Does what you just read make sense out loud? So maybe have the student repeat what they said and go, does that make sense? I do that all the time with my students. Okay, so the second stage, excuse me, confirmation, fluency, and ungluing from the print stage. So at stage 1, they're very glued to what is actually on the page, right? They may be very literal. They may be trying to decode but aren't doing it that great of a job yet. So here they're kind of ungluing from those specific letters on the page. This happens at grades 2 to 3. They're becoming more confident in their reading abilities, and their reading fluency really increases. So they're starting to read faster, more well-paced. It sounds more natural. And they just gain confidence. And at this point, they know how to read about 3,000 words, whereas before it was about 600, right? And their listening vocabulary is now at 9,000 words, whereas before it was about 6,000. So, what reading fluency looks like. Fluency checklist. Accuracy, I read the words correctly. Rate, I read not too fast, not too slow. Expression, I can read with feeling and I don't sound like a robot. Punctuation, I follow most or all of the punctuation marks as I read the text. So this includes things like questions or exclamation points, just reading with more feeling. Reading to learn, the new stage. So a first step. This is grades 4 to 8, ages 9 through 13. Students are reading to gain new information, usually from one viewpoint. So they may be reading first person, and it's just from that person's viewpoint. The first phase of phase 3, or stage 3, pardon me. So this is stage 3, and the first phase, or part A, is develop the ability to read beyond egocentric purposes so they can learn about information. So this may be just reading about facts, right? Like maybe they're reading a book about frogs, and they're learning all kinds of facts about frogs. The second phase can read on a general adult level. So this is where we go from learning to read to reading to learn, if that makes sense. So let's go to the next slide. So from learning to read to reading to learn. Learning to read, it requires learning what shapes and lines mean on a page. They must learn the conventions, and they must know narrative texts. And these are used to teach the learner how to read, right? So stories. Reading to learn. Sorry, I'm getting some messages. My mom's checking in on me since I'm sick. Readers use information to increase knowledge. Once conventions have been learned, expository texts or information-based texts are used to learn content. So, stage 4, multiple viewpoints. This is high school, ages 14 to 18. Students learn to navigate increasingly difficult concepts through text. They can consider multiple viewpoints and learning study skills and reading strategies. So here's another example over here. Distinguishing facts from opinion when reading an editorial, things like language arts. Construction and reconstruction. This is the college level, so 18 years old and beyond. You may be reading selectively to suit your own purpose, right? So you're choosing to read a book because it sounds good. Maybe you're interested in a specific topic. You may use it reading to analyze, synthesize, and predict something. You're reading for your own needs. Your reading is very rapid, it's efficient, and you're able to synthesize and create new knowledge. And it's like what you're doing right now. You're reading these slides to learn new information because you want to. Okay, so implications. You really need to have stage 3 if you're going to work in the industrial workplace. So the issue is many readers never even get beyond stage 3, and you really need stage 4 with the age of information we live in, right? Everything's pretty much written on the internet. If you want to use Facebook, you need to know how to read, and things get complicated. So you really need to be at stage 4 if you want to be really proficient, but you need to have at least stage 3 to have a job. In schools, most remediation is done between stages 1 to 3, but stage 3 is highly dependent on stage 1 and 2. So if a teacher keeps moving a student along and never really goes back to stage 1 and 2 to make sure that there's a solid foundation, the student is going to struggle with the later stages. So here's an easy cheat sheet. We have pre-reading, which is 0 to 6, initial reading or decoding, 6 to 8, confirmation, fluency, and unplugging off of print, 8 to 9, learning the new, 9 to 14, and multiple viewpoints, 14 to 18. All right, I want to make sure that this is recording, but I don't really have any way of checking, so we shall see. All right.